Okay, recording. You have a story to tell, and maybe you've thought, I should start a podcast. Meet Anchor. It's a powerful app that lets you record a podcast anywhere and get it heard everywhere. All you need to do is download the free Anchor app and hit record. Just go to anchor.fm/get started. Make a podcast with Anchor. That's anchor.fm/get started. Great. I think we got it.
Empire.
Welcome to the latest edition of All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino, and we are pleased to be joined by Washington Post Capitals writer Sam Pell. Sam, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
And it's a good time to chat because this team's won 2 in a row now. I know every hockey person feels like in a playoff series, once you lose a game, you think you're going to lose every game, or you win a game, you think you're going to win everything. But it does certainly feel like, and I hope Karl feels the same way, it looks like this team is turning things around. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I think Nick Jensen kind of summed it up pretty well the other night. He said, not everything is perfect right now, but we're headed in the right direction, right? It seems like they're in a lot better place than they were just a couple weeks ago or even really last week. So, yeah, I think they're definitely headed in the right direction. And I think this upcoming trip to Canada will probably say a lot here.
It's the old Bruce Boudreau curve, right? You win playing good, you win playing bad, then you lose playing good, and then it goes all the way back around again. They lost a couple not playing good, and then they're starting to play a little bit better now. So hopefully the curve continues. But this trip, although it's, I guess all three of those teams are they have their moments, right? So it could be a pretty tough one, but at the same time, I think the trip out west is really fun for the guys. I think they enjoy it, and so hopefully it's just hockey that they're worrying about, and they can have a good time.
Karl, you and I can argue about this later, but this is the first time after Vitek Vanacek, Sam, played the way he has the last 3 games that I'm convinced that if Brian McClellan doesn't get a goaltender and Vitek Vanacek isn't broken at some point in the playoffs like he was last year, that this team might be okay. Am I overreacting?
Ooh, that's interesting. You know what? I kind of like Vitek. I mean, it's hard to choose one over the other, but when he's in the net, I don't know. I feel like a little bit of that confidence, right? What you're hoping to feel. So I think he would be probably the guy, but obviously they're still going to look around 2 weeks or whatever until the deadline. But he seems like he's starting to emerge as the guy. I don't know, Sam. What do you think? You see them a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think I kind of was not on board with either Vanacek or Samsonov headed into the playoffs. And then, as we've watched them the last few games, I think, I know we've talked about this before, but I just feel more calm watching him. And I think he probably is more calm in net than maybe people think. And it feels like he has that confidence. It feels like the team, I think more importantly, also has that confidence in him. So I think there is still time before the deadline to go out and get someone. But I do think, McClellan probably is going to look for, a middle 6 forward in that depth, probably ahead of goaltending at this point, just because it feels like Vanacek's kind of gone back to his, better self that he was in December, January.
That's a good transition, Sam, because the trade deadline, and you and I have talked about this and with Tom and Tarek and everybody, that Brian McClellan always says what he means at the time, but he might not actually mean that for a longer period of time. And I almost think his comments last week about not being aggressive at the deadline may have been firing this team up a little bit. Could we see more of an aggressive move than kind of a depth forward? When you're talking about a middle 6 guy, we could be talking more of a Tomas Hertl or a Claude Giroux here than somebody who's just kind of a fill-in Andrew Cogliano type.
Oh, for sure. I definitely think, after kind of McClellan's very blunt comments, right? He's not very good at hiding things. He says what's on his mind all the time. And at that point, this team was not good. Now, right. 2 games later, they're on a 2-game win streak. They actually look like they're putting the pieces together. You got Anthony Mantha, who, to your credit too, he seems like a trade deadline ad, right? I mean, he's been gone for so long. Now you plug in a guy that all the guys already know, and he seems to bring that energy. So why not go out and try to get, a guy like another Anthony Mantha to kind of add that energy in, and maybe you do have something headed into the postseason.
I was going to joke about saying bring Jacob Vrana back, but I don't think that's actually a good idea.
He's coming back though too, isn't he? In the next game or whatever, tomorrow.
Yeah, former Capitals winger Jacob Vrana, who had coincidentally had a shoulder injury, is going to be back. The Red Wings put Danny DeKeyser on waivers today to be able to activate Jacob Vrana, but I think I think speaking of Jacob Vrana, and we've jokingly called Daniel Sprong Diet Vrana for kind of him being in Pierre Laviolette's doghouse a little bit. Is there a future here for Daniel Sprong on this team? And I'm curious what both of you think about that.
From what I hear, he's got some of that skill that you just wish to have on your team, and it's whether or not it's working. The coaching staff likes what he can bring, and I feel like some days he's awesome, and then other days it's like a lot of us when we play, we turn into shadows of what we can do, and when he's good, it's a good fit. But we're always looking for consistency in the league, and so that's when the coaching staff decides to make their choice on that. And I mean, sorry, just to jump back for a second, with wanting them to maybe try and make a splash, and that was the question that we were asking, I think, last week. Wino was do you think that the team is good enough, right, to go after one of those big pieces? And I'm still not totally convinced. It's just 2 games, and you don't have much time to make that decision, because I'm sure some of the teams are trying to get those guys, the Drew and the Forsberg, before it comes down to crunch time. But I don't know. And then going back to Sprong, like you said, it's tough to see those players, but we see them every now and then, and you just want to see that amazing talent come out every single game. But it's also a mental game too.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think with Sprong, it's so hard because I think we saw him excel and go on that really nice run last season when he was in a top 6 role and when he was filling in for Ovechkin on the top line and all of that. So I think just with Sprong, it seems like his fit is when he gets more minutes and he's put in an offense position. And now kind of where his role is, it would be on the third line, and it would be, that line is not very offensive, right? That's kind of more of a defense focused line, and Lars Eller really carries that. And even Brian McClellan said he isn't really sure what that third line identity is with so many different wingers and going in and out and all that stuff. So I mean, overall, I'm not sure if Sprong is the fit in Washington, but I think they'd probably have to just turn that line into something different than it currently is.
Let me bring up a name for you for the deadline that they haven't mentioned yet. A reunion with Marcus Johansson. Maybe a guy we saw in Washington the other night with the Seattle Kraken. He knows a lot of these guys in this room. It's not the same sort of thing as Anthony Mantha, but it's at least somebody who knows Washington and knows this team.
Yeah, I mean, that would be awesome. I think it'd be sweet to have JoJo back here, and he has chemistry with some of those top guys too, so you could slot him in there. Is JoJo the guy you throw on your third line though? Like, I'm not sure that he's a great fit there, but I think he's.
How about second line? How about you throw him on the second line and Oshie plays with Eller?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would make sense too. I think that'd be a nice fit, and I think that. Him being comfortable, I believe it would be one of those things actually where he would come back and just feel, almost like a breath of fresh air, like, oh, I'm back, this is my spot. And if you even get close to what JoJo was when he was here, I think that'd be a huge bonus and cheap too, right? So it'd be nice to bring someone back like that.
Yeah, Sam. This road trip coming up. I mean, the Western Canada trip. What should we look to see out of this team? And because I probably am overreacting to 2 wins in a row after 3 losses in a row. But is there something consistency in this game that Peter Laviolette and his staff want to see over these 3 games?
I mean, I definitely think, the special teams has been good, actually, for the last bit or so. I think they have 13 power play goals in their last 13 games. And I think at times maybe they didn't look completely great, but I think the last 2, they've had 2 power play goals and obviously 2 wins in both of those games. So I think that probably has to continue in that consistency. But I'm actually kind of curious to see if their offense stays as consistent as it has been. I think this is a team that's been looking for that offensive consistently. And it seems like some nights they just don't have it at all. Then you go on to the next night and they find it again. So I'm kind of interested to see if that's going to continue against, teams like Calgary and Edmonton and, going up to Vancouver.
Carl, did you play against McDavid?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
How'd you do?
I think we did okay. I'm pretty sure when I think I got him for 1 year while I was still in Washington, maybe 2. I can't remember for sure. And I think we did pretty good against him because I remember I think he was on a tear, and me and Carly had to try and stop him, and we did, and he chiseled an assist somehow. I don't know why they gave it to him. It was clearly a turnover after he had touched it, and then someone got it. Continued his point streak, so I remember that being kind of bugged about that. And then in Montreal, he torched us. Yeah, we had no answer for him there. So it was at that time, it was like that's when McKinnon was really lighting things up too, and it was back and forth, like who's better, who's more dynamic, this and that. But yeah, he is worth the price of admission every single time, even if their team isn't playing good. Him and Draisaitl are both worth it, and it's one of those things. It's a huge challenge going into the game, and it's a team effort. You're not beating that guy one-on-one. So yeah, you're lucky you get to go out there and see it in person again.
Yeah, so Capitals at the Oilers on Wednesday night. They finished the trip at the Vancouver Canucks on the weekend. When we come back with Sam Pell of the Washington Post, we're going to get into some of the kind of behind-the-scenes stuff, because Karl and I love to talk about this stuff of just kind of interview dynamics and covering this team. We'll be back with that on All's Caps.
This episode is brought to you by Seventh Generation. New York, did you know that climate pollution costs the state $27.5 billion every year? That isn't some national number, but a direct impact on your well-being. Climate pollution impacts all of us, our health, our communities, and our livelihoods. But it's not too late to change course. As you hear this, a $15 billion investment sits on the table of Albany's legislators. This is an opportunity to transition New York into a regenerative economy and invest in you, in us. It's vital help for communities hit hardest, with improvements in infrastructure and a more stable grid. It's a commitment to a future-fit labor force with job retraining and greater benefits. And it's money back in your pockets through lower energy costs and direct support for low to moderate income households. Tell Albany today. Invest in New York. Invest in us for future generations. To find out more, visit seventhgeneration.com/climate.
Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner and with Washington Post Capitals beat reporter Sam Pell. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Sam, this is your third year on the beat covering the Capitals. I'm curious, just your thoughts of what it's like covering this team after a Stanley Cup championship, and just you've kind of had the short end of the stick a little bit on a lot of Zoom access, but just trying to kind of get immersed in this team and cover it when we don't have locker room access really since before the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been super interesting. I mean, I was sort of around when they won the cup. I was helping out a little bit. You know, I was helping out Isabel the year after. And then, yeah, I kind of gotten a lot of first round exits from here on out. And, you know, my first year on the beat, I really haven't actually had a full year to myself. I think the first year was cut short to COVID. Last year was obviously the really short COVID season. Now we're kind of in this weird hybrid situation where it seems like things are back to normal. So yeah, my first season, I think it was fun being able to be in the locker room with guys and really have like the side conversations that would never make it anywhere, you know, on paper, but just kind of good to know and getting to know people and their families. And so that was good. And it's just kind of all lost in the last, you know, year or two. But it seems like hopefully it'll be coming back later this year or next year. So it's definitely a weird time. I think it's still weird for beat writers because you're still around the team every single day. You're usually traveling to all the games. But then again, are you really kind of with the team like you were before in the past? So it's definitely been fun. I've really enjoyed it, but definitely going to be happy when we can be back in a normal routine again.
Do you notice, like, even though it has been mainly Zoom, like just from the first year till now, do you notice that I guess the answers you get are a little bit different, or the friendliness factor changes at all with players? Like I know that I always felt that some people give off that vibe where you're just like, you know, instantly open. But for some, I know sometimes I would think, you know, as a year went by, another year went by, it would just be easier to talk to somebody because you feel like you have a bit of a relationship. But do you? I guess it's extra hard because of the Zoom stuff, but are you feeling that, like, that some players are starting to open up a little bit more to questions?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person too. Like I remember my first year, like talking with Braden Holtby when he was still there, like that relationship was really good because we saw each other every single day. Then all of a sudden he leaves, right? And you have all these new guys in the room and they don't know you, you don't know them, and you're trying to interact. And now this is all over Zoom. Like, I don't think any of us even talked to Chara when he was here in person because of the pandemic. So that was super weird. Anthony Mantha, I think we just started to talk to in person when he first came and had his, you know, the start to the season, then he had shoulder surgery. So we probably only talked to him in person once or twice. So I think it really depends on who you talk to. Like guys like John and Alex and Nick, like they've always been super great because you had that first year foundation and now maybe they know you. But I do think with the Zoom and not being in the room, I think guys are maybe less inclined to say as much as they would before, just because we're in such a different type of format, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'm actually curious about this too. Do you think that is it easier on Zoom to ask a tough question versus doing it in person? Like it's like, everybody's so like 7 feet tall, 300 pounds on Twitter, and then in
Yeah.
person they're back to normal size. Does it feel that way at all when you're asking people questions?
I actually feel like it's the exact opposite. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
when I'm in person, if I can be standing in front of someone and I remember having conversations with Verano multiple times about when he was in like a slump where he wasn't, he just wasn't playing good. And I remember I went up to his locker and was just like, hey, like, obviously, you haven't been playing good. And like, I just want to kind of understand why you think so. And I feel like that question and the answer that he would give me is probably one that's way more open and honest than if you were put in front of a camera, right? And had to say it to like 10 to 15 reporters that he cannot see in person, and he can't understand the intention or the reaction behind it. There's no way to follow up. There's no like intro of, hi, how are you? It's straight to the point. So I actually feel like those tough conversations and questions are so much easier in person when someone can know your intent before asking it.
And part of this pandemic life has been a few of us, us and Emily Kaplan and Jim Thomas in St. Louis, did that 14-day quarantine to cover the bubble in Toronto. And Sam, you did your 14 days in Toronto, and then the Capitals go and lose in the first round. What was that whole thing like, just like being in the hotel room for the 14 days and then having it not maybe be as worth it as you guys thought?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because I remember we decided to plan my schedule around leaving early. So I was in the hotel in Toronto while the Caps were doing their weird, or I guess the Caps were waiting for all the play-in teams to play. And it was just basically about seeding at that point, who would get in. We already knew that the Capitals would be in the playoffs and play in that first round. So I just remember sitting in the hotel, like watching all of these play-in games, thinking like, okay, here's day like 6, 7, 10, like, I have to sit here 14 days just to see the Caps in a postseason series where we kind of thought it'd likely be more than one round. And then you go out, and I think I was out of the bubble, quote unquote, for less time than I was in it. I think it was like 10 or 11 days compared to 14. And just with all the COVID stuff was a little crazy. But I do think at the end of the day, like that was probably, I would do it all over again. Just because when else am I going to spend 2 weeks in Toronto in a hotel watching hockey? And that's all I did for 2 weeks. And then being out and being one of the only people in an empty Scotiabank arena, kind of watching playoff hockey was pretty surreal. And I think it also on the back end kind of got the respect from the organization and hopefully some of the guys that I was there, even though I wasn't able to, talk to them in person.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a battle. I mean, sitting at least you got TV and stuff, I guess, but
Yeah.
sitting there for that long, just oh man. Like, even when I had COVID, just sitting in the house, like I had the whole house to roam and the backyard and all that, I was still going stir crazy. So I definitely think you win some respect points just for going through it, especially with the players having to go through their stuff too. So yeah, it wouldn't have been for me. I would have been on watching it on TV and trying to get on those Zoom calls. So pretty impressive.
Yeah, I did it. And I rented like a basement apartment in a house essentially in Edmonton, so I could at least get some fresh air. Like I don't know, Sam, how you did it in the hotel room.
I literally could not leave my room. There were no windows, and they had me they dropped off Uber Eats, or they dropped me off like food at my door, and they were like, no, you can't even go down the hallway or like go anywhere. And I was like, are you sure? And they're like, no, like people can come and knock on your door and like see if you're actually still in your room in Canada. So I decided not to test that out and not to kind of tread the line there. But yeah, I don't really know how I did it, but I think I got lucky because there were so many hockey games on, and it was all these really exciting games, and just had to get through it to, I guess, essentially do my job.
And it would have been nice if the Capitals gave you more than one round for
it would have been
effort.
nice.
This is and Karl, I know we've talked about this a little bit before. To me, this window is the two Todd Reirden years, and you had him as an assistant coach, but to me, it just felt like this team wasted those 2 years where everyone was still kind of in their prime. And if you had Barry Trotz back, or if you had the next Peter Laviolette or someone like that, that it may not have been as those 2 years or 2 playoff exits might not have been as rough.
Yeah, you know what? It's so hard to say though, because like Todd is a great coach, and he's very, very smart, and he was doing a ton the years that Barry was the coach. I mean, the whole staff was doing a ton. So It was a tough choice because you have, it's like having that asset. It's like having that player that's coming out of junior that's just had an amazing World Junior, and you actually have another guy who's been in the league for 2 years that's also playing great. And it's like I got to choose one over the other because I just need to, and it's hard to make that call. And Todd would, I don't know if this comes into play, but I would imagine that it was a little cheaper to keep him around than what Barry maybe would have been. But it's hard to say. But yeah, looking back on it, I mean, Barry's going to go down as one of the best head coaches in history, and it's hard to say bye to somebody like that, especially after you just won a cup. But when we look back on it, yeah, it was two very unfortunate years where maybe they could have ridden that wave to another cup or two, or at least some long playoff berths. But it's the whole hindsight thing. So I don't really fault the team too much for it, because I do think Todd is a great coach, but it's hard to go from assistant coach to head coach. Just not many guys can do it.
Sure, and Peter Laviolette has done it. I'm curious, how has it been getting to know Peter, Sam, and finally now that we're able to talk to him in person, what's been your building up a relationship with Peter Laviolette?
Yeah, I think it's been super interesting because, it was during COVID and now, and we see him, every day, and we have conversations, and I've had, obviously like side conversations with him, and met him before the season for the first time in person. We just like went and grabbed coffee and chatted, and that was super nice. Just getting to know someone outside of hockey, and him, telling me about his family. He loves to talk about his kids. He's a very proud dad of all of his kids and the sports that they play and what they do and what they accomplish. So I think it's been nice from that perspective to kind of get to know him as a person and see what he's done. And then, as far as like a working relationship every single day, I think, he's probably made it very clear that he's pretty honest with what he sees, but there's obviously times when, he's a coach, right? He has to hold back some, and, he loves the saying that they're working through things in the room. And that's just something that we like have to live with as reporters. And I think, he'll say off to the side, oh yeah, like I can't really say that, but like, here's what's happening. So it's been a really interesting relationship, I think. And I'm kind of curious to what it's like in the room with him and players, because I feel like so many players have said that they really, really like him, respect him. They feel like he kind of commands a room, and it's kind of the been there, done that attitude. And I feel like even with reporters, I think we can tell, yeah, he's been there, done that, and he's going to kind of operate the way he's always operated in the past.
Well, he's no Claude Julien, Karl.
Yeah.
When we come back on All's Caps, Sam Pell will be the latest victim of Karl's stupid questions. Welcome back to All's Caps. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner and Samantha Pell, Capitals writer at the Washington Post, who is now the latest victim of Karl's stupid questions.
Yes, okay. So this is my favorite part of the show, because I get to, I guess, ask the questions that I've been asked and over the years. And the way it works is just answer as honestly as possible. And if you don't want to, then make something up that you think we might be interested in. And I'm going to give you a score at the end, and we'll put you on the leaderboard here and see how you fare. But yeah, it's just for fun. Points don't really matter. They just matter to me. Okay, first question here. What is your guilty pleasure?
Oh, my guilty pleasure is watching the Food Network basically every day. And that's it.
It's a great guilty pleasure. I remember binging that all the time. So I'm on board with that. And then, okay, I got a couple new ones actually in this, in these questions that I haven't asked before. First one of these new ones is, what would be your dream interview? Like someone that you just love to have like a sit down one-on-one chat with.
Ooh, that's a great question. Is it anyone, like not in sports, or is it?
If you can think of one in sports and one outside of sports, great. If not, then just dream interview, period.
Okay. Let me think. In sport. So I am a really big hockey person now, but I actually think I'm kind of curious. I think LeBron James would be a really fun interview one-on-one, since I feel like I've watched him for so long in the NBA and him growing up, and now he has kids and stuff like that. And I feel like just what he's built and kind of his legacy is super interesting to me. So I think I would say LeBron.
Nice.
This feels like, Karl, you could do one of those living or dead questions. You could be like who do you want to have dinner with, living or dead, and who would you want to interview, living or dead? Because there's some people who aren't around anymore who would be a fun interview.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. And I kind of like maybe going like if you're talking to a player or something, like who would you like to play with? Who's in the league now, or was in the league at some point? We can go a couple different directions there, but that's perfect. Okay, so you said you like Food Network, so this is perfect. What's your favorite meal of the day? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Dinner. Yes, I love dinner because I'm a big pasta person and I could eat pasta probably every single day and it probably wouldn't be appropriate at breakfast. And it seems kind of big for lunch.
Yes, pasta. Big pasta.
I'm really upset. My favorite Italian place in DC, Acqua al Due, closed during the pandemic, and it's still there.
No.
There are other. I've got a couple other recommendations for you of places I've heard of and gone to lately. That they're right close to Capitol. One's not far from the convention center, and one is closer to like Capitol Hill sort of areas, but. Big time like New Jersey Italian and like almost like a modern
Love
Italian.
that.
Yes.
That's all you want, all the Rex.
We'll get a list going right after this. Well, you just nailed it there because you're going to lead right into my next question. Sam, I see that you post a lot of pictures of some good places on your Instagram. So do you have a favorite restaurant or hangout spot in DC for us to go to?
Oh gosh. I'm blanking on all the places I've ever been.
Isn't that the way? It's always the way it is. You get put on the spot, you can't remember.
I feel like so. Me and my good friend Brianna, we always go to Makedo on H Street, and it's a very good Asian place. But they also do like coffee and pastries in the morning. So usually we go and get lunch or dinner, get a drink, and then usually we'll kind of get coffee on the way out. But yeah, I would say Makedo's a great place. I went to Zeppelin last night in DC. It's kind of like in the Shaw area. They're a big sushi place. But yeah, I would probably say either of those. I know Isabel, I don't know if you've been there, loved Mikuba.
So not only that, but the last time I was dog sitting for friends in Columbia Heights, and I texted this was before she went to Ukraine and it was still in Moscow. I said, I'm going to Mikuba. She said, order this, and this, and it was a top 5 meal of my life.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's one of the best restaurants, and it's so good.
How was Zeppelin for sushi?
Zeppelin's really good. I've been a lot. They have a really good happy hour, but it's just a good solid place.
Interesting. Okay, I'll put that on the list. Okay, so I feel like I might know the answer to this just based off our conversation, but you may surprise me. Would you rather go out with friends? Would you rather stay in watching a movie or TV show by yourself, or have friends over for game night or just hang out?
I think I'd rather stay in and like watch a movie by myself. / like that would be Food Network by myself.
Oh, nice. Very nice. That I thought for sure you were going to say go and explore, go out and do something. So this is what we're learning about people here. This is perfect. So if it wasn't the Food Network though, is there anything else you're enjoying?
I feel like it all goes in like my guilty pleasures. Like I feel like since we're so into like hockey 24/7 and that's like our jobs, I tend to stray away from like watching sports or like watching anything super serious. So it always turns into like reality shows like The Bachelor or like the Food Network and things to like shut my brain off. And I don't really need to think and process anything. And then I just watch and go for it. But yeah, that's usually what's on the TV or whatever rom-com pops up on Netflix that night.
Don't spoil The Bachelor for me. I still haven't watched any episodes since I went to Beijing, so I have to catch up on everything from The Bachelor from the time I left until now.
Okay, won't say anything. That's a lot of episodes.
No Bachelor spoilers on this podcast or in the media room or anywhere else.
Holy, you too in The Bachelor. You're on your own on that one. Speaking of those shows coming up, the Survivor season premiere coming up here on the 9th. Just make sure you tune in. Best show on TV. That's a side note.
You should have asked Tom Gliddy about that. He and his girlfriend are big time watchers of Survivor.
Oh, really? That's impressive. I actually put in an application 2 years ago.
Really?
See if I can get on there. Yeah.
Wait, what?
At some point.
We gotta start a petition.
Time out. So you put in an application to be on Survivor.
Yeah, Survivor, and I also want to get on Amazing Race. I think me and Maggie
that looks fun
on there, so it'd be a dream. I don't know. Personally, I don't think I'd be that great on Survivor, but I think it'd be really fun to try anyways. And same thing with Amazing Race.
Yeah, I see you more as an Amazing Race kind of guy.
Yeah, Survivor's tough. You know, it's people are targeted so fast for some one little thing that they say. So you have to be so careful with every word you choose and how to strategize. I think that's probably why I like it. But I did my Survivor pool for last season and it ended up winning. So I got to defend the title in this year's pool, which I think I'm gonna draft tonight or tomorrow. So, anyways, I digress. Okay, last question here, and this usually throws people for a loop because I don't know it's something that they think about very often. But Sam, what do you think the ugliest vegetable or fruit is?
Oh, the ugliest vegetable or fruit.
That was the exact reaction I was hoping for.
Great question. I just went grocery shopping today, so I'm like trying to figure out what I bought from the grocery store that looks weird. I don't know what the ugliest is. I mean, ginger looks weird.
Ooh,
That's like a root, right?
That's a great response though. Gee, I didn't even think about that.
That's a spice, but I think we can count it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can still count it. It's still in the produce section.
Yeah, it's there. It's next to like the corn and the leeks. I bought leeks today. I've never bought leeks, but they look like scallions, I guess. So they're not that weird.
That's amazing. Well, I got one for you to check out. You can Google it or you can try and find it at the grocery store. But a sumo orange, it is the weirdest looking orange ever. And the funny thing is, it tastes unbelievable. Highly, highly recommend it. No, sumo oranges are not sponsoring us, but just take a peek at them. They are so funny looking and wrinkly and weird, but probably the best orange I've ever had.
Okay, I'll definitely have to take a look.
Okay, so we got that one. I was just gonna say ginger was a heck of an answer. So well played there. Food Network, sweet. Okay, 54. Okay, that puts you right at 107 points. Oh man, I think that puts you into a tie for third place podium.
There we go. I'll take that.
Yes, congratulations. It's I think everyone's been scoring a little higher lately. They're starting to figure out how this thing works by now.
Or you're becoming softer. I don't know. I can't tell.
Yeah, maybe a little bit softer. You could be right there, but I think that ginger answer just really. I was expecting like eggplant or something kind of simple like that, but ginger was absolutely solid.
Love that.
Well, Sam, a podium performance here on All's Caps. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
And everybody will talk to you probably the middle of the Capitals road trip next time on All's Caps.